We just went through all of the combo amps, the half stack amps, and the last 3 amp heads. The studio preamp, the tube preamp, and the Fender Acoustasonic. Now you would think the next logical step would be to do a video on the cabs, right? Yeah, but I got a request to do a video on the modulation pedals, so I'm gonna go with the modulation pedals first, and then we'll do the cabs at a later date. Now before we get into the modulation effects, just let me say that I went over the flangers a few weeks back, so I won't be covering them again this time. Instead, I'll be covering the tremolos, the vibratos, the phasers, the panners, etc. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Alrighty then, let's get modulated. My test preset is going to use the 65 Deluxe Reverb amp only version. It just has volume, treble, and bass. The reverb and vibrato have been done away with. In other words, we're just using this channel up here. We're not using this channel. I don't want to use any other effects other than the effect being tested. So this is going to be another one of those very, very bare bones tests. So we'll start with the tube bias tremolo. Inspired by the smoothly pulsating tube bias tremolo heard in amps such as the Fender Princeton Reverb. Controls, speed, adjusts rate of tremolo effect. Tap division, selects the subdivision of the current tempo to use for setting the effect speed. Intensity, adjusts depth of tremolo effect. Level, adjusts overall signal output level. So for all of these tests, I'm going to be using the default setting on the Deluxe Reverb amp. Volume at 4, treble at 6, bass at 4.5. This is the tube bias tremolo at its default settings. Now if we boost speed, intensity, and level up to 8, it sounds like this. This is one of my favorite settings. Harmonic tremolo. Based on the distinctive Fender harmonic vibrato, or tremolo, circuit introduced in early 1960s brown textured vinyl-covered amplifiers. The effect produces alternating frequency bands that emphasize low and high frequencies. Controls, speed, intensity, shape, adjusts tremolo waveform, tap division, and the mode switch. Selects between 2 historically accurate versions, the 1960 6G4 tremolo and the 1963 6G4A tremolo. Here's the harmonic tremolo at its default settings. Optical tremolo. Inspired by the classic Fender stuttering photoresistor tremolo as heard in Fender amps such as the Twin Reverb. Controls, speed, and intensity. This is optical tremolo at its default settings. Tremolo pedal, inspired by the Boss TR2, one of the most enduring popular tremolo pedals since its debut in 1997. Controls: rate, adjust tremolo effect speed. Intensity: duty cycle, adjust percentage of time the signal is on. Tap division. Shape: LFO clip, adjust tremolo signal clipping percentage. Here's what the tremolo pedal sounds like at default settings. Now let's just change all of the settings and see what this comes up with. JC Chorus. Inspired by the Bucket Brigade analog chorus of the classic Roland JC 120 Jazz Chorus amplifier, this effect has been used on countless alternative albums from the 1980s to the present. Controls: output mode switch. Selects mono or stereo chorus. So for the JC Chorus, I'm putting it after the amp because the only control on it is the stereo and mono. And if you use a stereo effect before the amp collapses it down into mono. And I want you to hear the difference here. So here is the JC Chorus in mono. Now we flip that switch, and if you're listening on a good system or if you've got earbuds, you'll hear the difference right away. JC Vibrato. Inspired by the Bucket Brigade analog vibrato of the classic Roland JC 120 Jazz Chorus amplifier, this effect has been used on countless alternative albums from the 1980s to the present. Controls: rate, tap division, depth, and output mode switch. The JC Vibrato also has to get placed after the amp because it has the mono stereo switch. Here's what it sounds like in mono. Now let's switch it to stereo and see what it sounds like. Now let's crank up the depth all the way and back down the speed just a hair. Vibr Tone. Inspired by the classic late 60s, early 70s Fender effect that used a rotating speaker baffle to create a swirling Doppler effect sound. Controls: drive, Adjust signal level into preamp stage, typically adding distortion at higher settings. Tone, adjusts overall tonal color. Level, adjusts overall signal output level. Fast, sets fast modulation speed. Slow, sets slow modulation speed. Speed switch, switches between fast and slow settings. Ramp, adjusts how quickly modulation goes from slow to fast. Sensitivity, adjusts ramp dynamics sensitivity. Dynamics switch, turns automatic dynamics on and off. The Vibr Tone is another effect that has to go after the amp because it's emulating a rotating speaker, and a rotating speaker sends sound left, right, center, all over the place. So here's what the Vibr Tone sounds like at default settings. And here it is at slow setting. Universe Vibe, inspired by the otherworldly sounds of the late 60s Univibe phaser / vibrato pedal. Controls, speed, intensity, volume, tap division, and then the first mode switch, Vintage Modern, selects between darker, vintage, and brighter, modern tones. And the second mode switch, Chorus or Vibrato, selects between lush chorus and pitch modulated vibrato modes. Here is the Universe Vibe at its default settings. Now, let's change vintage to modern and chorus to vibrato. And let's see what that does. Rotary Speaker 122, inspired by the Leslie 122 Rotary Speaker cabinet, prized by organists and guitarists for the swirling sound made by a spinning speaker. Controls, drive, tone, level, fast, sets fast modulation speed, slow, sets slow modulation speed, speed switch, ramp, sensitivity, adjusts ramp dynamic sensitivity, dynamic switch, turns dynamics on and off. The rotary speakers also have to be run after the amp if you're recording in stereo. Otherwise, if you put it before the amp, the signal collapses and you will not have a stereo signal. So here's what the Rotary Speaker 122 sounds like at default setting. And here's what it sounds like with the slow setting. Rotary Speaker 147. Inspired by the Leslie 147 rotary speaker cabinet prized by organists and guitarists for the swirling sound made by a spinning speaker. Now, one of the things I need to say here, it's not just one spinning speaker, it's a treble horn spinning in one direction and a bass rotor spinning in the other direction. So it's throwing sound all over the room. That's one of the things that makes the Leslie sound so fantastic. Controls, same as the Rotary Speaker 122. Drive, tone, level, fast, slow switch, ramp, sense, and dynamics on and off. Here's the Rotary Speaker 147 and its default settings. And here it is at a slow setting. Phaser 90, inspired by the classic MXR Phase 90 phase shifter. Controls, speed, adjust rate of phasing effect, and tap division. Here's the Phaser 90 at default settings. Now let's ramp up that speed just for the heck of it. Phaser, inspired by the Boss PH3 phaser, an effect that became indispensable soon after its introduction because of its distinct ability to add flavor to chords and solos. Controls, rate, depth, resonance, adjust phase modulation resonant peak. Tap division, mode, selects among 4 phase modulation types. Stages, sets number of phase modulation filter stages. Here's the phaser pedal at its default settings. Now let's mess with the settings. And now let's see what this sounds like. Chorus Mono, inspired by the Boss CE5 Chorus, an effect used on nearly every song from the 1980s and revered for its sparkling crystalline sound. Controls, rate, depth, mix, adjust amount of chorus effect mixed into signal. Tap division, low cut, attenuates low chorus frequencies. High cut, attenuates higher chorus frequencies. Here's the Chorus Mono at default setting. Now let's turn up the depth, turn up the mix, turn up the low cut, drop the rate just a hair. Now, let's see what that sounds like. Chorus stereo. Same as the chorus mono model above, but with stereo operation. Controls. Same as the chorus mono, except for width. Adjust stereo width of the chorus effect. And the stereo chorus pedal, of course, has to go after the amp because it's stereo. "3D Chorus." Inspired by the highly collectible 80s era Boss DC2 Dimension C, this pedal features 4 distinct subtle to extreme dimensional sounds, each accessed using the unit's 4 mode buttons. Controls. Mode. Select among 4 different chorus modulations. This is the 3D Chorus at default settings with modes 2 and 4 activated. Now let's see what other modes are available. That's 2 plus 4. Let's try 1 plus 3. And while we're here, let's try one more mode. Let's try 2 plus 3. Triple Double Chorus. Inspired by the Ultra Lush Dyno My Piano Tri-Stereo Chorus, used on countless 80-era ballads and pop songs. Controls. Preset switch. Activates a classic slow chorus effect. Turn manual switch off for best results. And rate and depth controls become non-functional. Manual switch. Activate to manually select rate and depth for all 3 chorus effects. Turn manual switch off for best results. Rate. Adjust chorus speed when manual switch is on. L depth. Adjust left channel chorus amount. C depth. Adjust center channel chorus amount. R depth. Adjust right channel chorus amount. Feedback. Adjust wet signal amount fed back into effect. Sparkle. Adjust high-end modulation amount. Stereo switch. Selects mono or stereo operation. The Triple Double Chorus is another pedal that has to go after the amp because it has left, center, and right settings. And the default setting sounds like this. And here's what happens when you mess with the controls. Orbit Stereo Panner simulates the sound of a guitar signal being panned in stereo, with switchable options for panning characteristics. Controls: rate, adjust left-right panning effect speed. Depth, adjust left-right panning effect distance. Tap division, and type switch. Select among 3 waveform options for panning type. A more harsh left-to-right pan, square wave. A more gradual pan, sine wave, and an even smoother pan, triangle wave. The Orbit Stereo Panner also has to be placed after the amp because if you put it before the amp, it won't be a stereo panner. It'll just sound weird. But it sounds like this right now. Let's mess with the settings a little bit. And let's see what this sounds like. Yeah, I was right. This video was a lot of fun. Now, it would take us, like 2 to 3 hours to go over each one of those pedals in detail. I'd need to set up a Patreon account, and then we'd have to set up a live stream so we could all log in and go over each of the pedals in more detail. Now, if that sounds like something that's of interest to you, drop me a line, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. And if you're still here with me, thank you so much for stopping by and sticking around. I really do appreciate it. If you have any other questions, concerns, or suggestions, drop me a line. I get to them as soon as I possibly can. Now, I'll have all new content next Wednesday. You don't want to miss that. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. All right, guys, have an absolutely fantastic weekend. And I'll be talking with you next week.